High Chancellor Roderick. There are some who claim men have no place in the chantry, beyond the lowest rank of scholarly brothers, those who take their place amongst the Templars. It is not true. This is an organization spanning 7 nations, from smallest village chantry to the grand cathedral in Valroyx. It takes more than sermons to keep it alive. There is an invisible army at work, ensuring meals are delivered, repairs are made, and faithful attend to, and much of it done by chantry brothers like myself. The position of High Chancellor places a man beside the Most Holy. I control who is permitted audience, handle her correspondence, deliver her word to Thetis, and serve as her advisor on matters which may be mundane but cannot be disregarded. If I have influence, let it be said, it is something I use sparingly, if at all. This is a task of which I devote myself to solemnly, and my followers bear a burden so that others are free to guide the spirits of Thetis unencumbered. Excerpt from the letter by High Chancellor Roderick, Asagon 938 Dragon. He seems like an okay guy. Oh, we can look at the images. So that's me, Kim Adar. Crafting materials. Ooh, Alfred. Alfred was first used by the elves of the Arathalan, hence the name. The root gave their medicines particular efficacy, and so when the Imperium conquered the elves, the magisters adopted its use, and its popularity spread to all corners of the empire. Alfred is a hardy plant with large green leaves that grows wild in many places. It's so common that it tends to show up in most gardens and fields, almost like a weed. Unlike a weed, however, most people appreciate having access to the wonderful, tight little plant. The roots can be used with very little preparation. Rubbing some of the juice on a wound, for example, will speed up healing and numb pain. And chewing of a slice of root treats minor ailments like indigestion, flatulence, and horse throats. Hey, horse throats, I could probably use that. There are several varieties, but the most useful for herbalists are the bitter, gossamer, and royal elf roots, an excerpt from the Botanical Compendium by Ian's Annika Botanist. Creatures. Foot Soldier. I have faced Antivan duelist, Feridlin Ash Warriors, and Fog Warrior skirmishers. When we strip away the titles and tricks, they are simply men who want to see their enemies dead, but need a hand free to manage it. Duelists favor a thinner target over the offensive strength of a main gosh? Ash Warriors need a hand to guide their Mabari and a lighter weapon to take the advantage of the openings their dogs leave, while Fog Warriors rely on stealth and speed too much to use a heavy shield. When engaging with such an opponent, respect his speed, his hands and his feet will move a great deal. Ignore them. Watch his hips and shoulders instead. First, deny what advantage he has in his allies or environment. Unless you have trained equally in such matters, once you control his weapon, overwhelm him. He has no shield and you need not fear a second blade. If forced to fight in such a manner, you must decide whether you will fight as a duelist, one-handed, or chevalier. If the former, drop your back leg away to tighten your center target. As you have no shield to cover your body or a second weapon to bring into range, focus on a quick attack and give around freely when you cannot find an advantage if the latter rely on your brace and gauntlet as a shield and try to wrench the opponent's weapon away. My left arm bears the scars of such efforts, but my opponents bear worse. Better still, do not lose your shield at all, but battles are not a place of perfection. An excerpt from Meditation upon the Use of Blades by Swordsmith Massacre de Jeune Mine requires reading at Académie des Chevaliers. Shade. Physically defined entirely by emotion and memory, most demons seek to seize immediately upon anything they perceive as life, jealousy attempting to possess it. But what of those that do not? What of those that encounter no life, or fail to possess a body? What of those that are more cautious by their nature? Wait. Oh dear, I completely missed that whole thing. What? Okay. It is often suggested that the only way for a demon to affect the world of the living is by possessing a living or once living body, but this is not always true. Indeed, a shade is one creature, a demon in its true form, that has adapted to affect the world around it. My hypothesis is that we already know how many demons become confused, and when they pass through the veil of our world, they are unable to tell the living from the dead, the very static nature of our universe being confusing to a creature that is accustomed to a physicality defined entirely by emotion and memory. Most demons seek to seize immediately upon anything they perceive as life, jealously, attempting to possess it. But what are those that do not? What are those that encounter no life? Okay. These demons watch, they lurk, they envy. In time, such a demon will learn to drain energy from the physique of those it encounters, just as it did in the Fade. Once it is drained enough, it has the power to manifest and will forever after be known as a shade. Such a creature spurns possession, it instead floats shadow across its piece of land, preying upon the physique of any other who cross its path. Perhaps it believes itself to be in the Fade. There is evidence to believe this is so. Wraith. Like wisps, wraiths are sometimes thought to be the remains of spirits or demons that have been destroyed. They cannot shape the fate around themselves, nor are they capable of mimicking forms they see in the minds of dreamers as many weaker spirits do. Instead, they are the scavengers of the fade, dwelling in the shadows of stronger beings, feeding on scraps of thought and emotion. From beyond the veil, spirits and demons by enchanter Mudrumal. The Kunari. The people of the Kun are perhaps the least understood group in Thedas. Kunari wars were brutal, but so was the Chantry Schism. So was the fall of the Emperor. Some of the misunderstanding is an accident of nature, and the race we call Kunari are formidable. Nature has given them fierce horns and strange eyes, and the ignorant look on them and see monsters. Some is an accident of language. Few among the Quins speak the common tongue, and few speak it well. In a culture that thrives for mastery, to have only a passable degree of skill is humiliating indeed, and so they often keep quiet among foreigners, but out of shame. But much of the result of the culture itself. The Kunari view their whole society as being a single creature, a living entity whose health and well-being are the responsibilities of all. Each individual is only a tiny part of the whole, a drop of blood in its veins, important not for itself, but for what it is to the whole creature. Because of this, to the Kunari, most outsiders belong to the army, which the Quinn regards as if it were the physical body, arms, legs, ears and ears, the things a creature needs in order to interact with the world. One cannot get to know a person solely by studying his hand or his foot, and so one cannot truly meet a Kunari until one has visited their cities. This is where their mind and soul dwell. In Serahon and Parvolan, one can truly see the Kunari in their entirety. There, the unification of the Kunari into a single being is most evident. Workers, whom the Quinn calls the mind, produce everything the Kunari require. The soul, the priesthood seeks a greater understanding of the self, the world, and extorts the body and mind to continually strive for perfection. The body serves as a go-between for the mind and the soul, and the world perhaps. And the world. Everyone and everything has a place, decided by the Quinn in which they work for the good of the whole. It is a life of certainty, of equality, if not individuality. The writings of the seer of Quinn Nar 814, blessed. The Conclave. It has been a year of little more than chaos. Yes, the mages voted to dissolve the Circle of the Magi, but I will point out this vote comes only after increased restrictions were placed on them following the unfortunate events in Kirkwall. What other choices they have? Yes, the Templar Order abandoned their duties and elected to pursue the mages to bring them back in line. But after 1,000 years in which their sole role was the mages' keepers, what else could one expect? They envisioned the war over quickly, a single battle that would see the mages' resolve crumble, after which they would meekly return to confinement. That did not happen. This conflict dragged on forever, with advantage on neither side. Both Templars and mages see this, and thus they have agreed to come to the conclave. This is our chance. Words need to be said, which have not been said. A compromise must be reached because there is no other choice. I believe this with all my heart. I am not without fault in all this. Perhaps I pushed too hard for reform, or not hard enough. The Maker has seen fit to give me another chance. I will not squander it. The Temple of the Sacred Ashes is where together we will make history, and with luck we will be remembered kindly for it. From the Journals Divine, Justine V, Dragon 941. The Breach. What does it mean to pierce the veil? That which separates our world from the realm of dreams and demons. For the average man and woman, it is a frightening thought to consider just how fragile this separation actually is. The veil is not a physical curtain. It is a structure, limited to a particular place. It is everywhere. It is in their home, in the streets where they walk, in farmers' fields, as well as remote mountain vales. At any moment it could be torn to shreds, allowing demons and other hordes to flood into the world, like water through a burst dam. Known law tells us the small rifts can be sealed, but what about a large one? What if some catastrophic magical event created a rift, like the one we have now? A rift so large and horrific, it weakened the integrity of the veil as a whole. Such a breach would threaten the entire world, turning concerns about occasional demonic intrusion into a charming anecdote compared to the monsters we would then face. If there is anything to be done, any reason we should look at magic with fear, it is for the possibility more than any other. From the true threat of the magic by Lady Seeker, Alandra Vale. Vita. What the? It starts you off at the bottom, that's bad. Sometimes. After extensive study of the Qunari species you kindly provided, I have come to the conclusion that the painted marks on their faces and body are not, in fact, solely for ceremonial purpose, but provide a practical benefit. Oh, I'm certain there is some cultural significance to the patterns and the colors they choose, but the Qunari do nothing without purpose, yes? They call these markings Vitar, which in their tongue means poison armor. It's called this because the markings are magical in nature and actually harden their skin to an iron-like quality without hindering flexibility. My analysis says the paint consists largely of poison. It's mixed with something else. Blood. Perhaps their own? That neutralizes the poison, and only for one with Qunari physiology. Anything else would perish almost instantly, which reminds me, I can't require another body slave. The process activates the magical qualities of the poison, which provides the protective effects, almost in the same manner with Lurium runes. How this works and whether it can be used for our purposes will require further study, perhaps live specimens this time. From a letter by Nemira Organas, apprentice of the Magisters Verus, Dragon 932. So that's why she's got those splurge marks on her face. I approve, Kim. Alright, places. Temple of the Sacred Ashes rediscovered. According to legend, the Sacred Ashes of Andrastate were carried out of the Imperium by Harvard, disciple of our Cat Lady. Wounded by Tevinter soldiers when he tried to stop Andrastate's capture, Harvard was too late in coming to Minthros to stop the execution. All he found was her ashes, left out in the elements. As soon as Harvard touched them, Andrastate appeared in a vision. "Rise," she said, Agios of the Faith, the maker of the shall never forget you so long as I remember. The Agios of the Faith, so named by a prophet herself, stood at her word and found his wounds healed and his spirit renewed. He gathered the ashes of Andrastate and returned to the lands of the Elmari tribes, which are now Felderan. It's said that Andrastate's song led him to a holy site where Harvard and his followers built a temple to house her remains. The legend ends. The legend ends. For centuries, men searched for the temple of sacred ashes, finding only rumors and tall tales. Chantry scholars concluded that there was no temple. There were no sacred ashes. It was all a myth, alleged allegory intended to inspire and feed the fire of faith. When the hero of Felderan came, seeking to cure a dying Arrol with the miraculous powers of the ashes, the hero, with the help of renowned scholar brother Federan Genovitivi, traced the steps of the ancients and came to a remote ruin high in the Frostback Mountains, where the urn of the sacred ashes waited, as the legend said it would. After the triumph of the righteous over the fifth flight and the temple's discovery was shared with the world, much to our dismay, however, by the time our soldiers arrived at the temple, the urn had disappeared. To this day, we do not know who took them or why. All that is certain is that it was the Maker's will. The hero of Felderan did not share the discovery with the world, and the brother Genitivi, whose research made it possible, had disappeared without a trace. Truth, however, were always out, and rumors circulated about the cause of Arul Emin's Gurin's miraculous recovery. Agents of the Chantry investigated claims about the urn of sacred ashes and were eventually led, as the hero had been led, to the temple. By the time the soldiers reached it, however, the urn was nowhere to be found. Though the ashes were gone, the temple itself stood, and it has since become a source of hope for the faithful of the Grand Cathedral is the beating heart of our Chantry, and the Temple of Ashes is her soul. Here, the honor of the Chantry's past even as we forge barely into the future. From a lecture delivered by Chantry scholar Mother Coulthard at the University of Aurelius in 938 Dragon. Wow, that was a lot of reading. Interesting. I do recall that somewhere. So we got the behavior screen allows you to provide things. So we've got another character to look at. Oh my gosh, we've got plenty of characters to look at. Solas, Cassandra. I understand our first order of business must be to investigate the bizarre breach in the sky and protect people from the demons descending. While my search continues, I wish to draw your attention to a new arrival at our camp, an elven apostate calling himself Solas. Solas entered the camp voluntarily, surrendering his staff to the Chantry forces without protest. He is not Dalash, and says that he has never been part of the circle, claiming instead to have studied magic peacefully on his own, particularly magic tied to the Fade. While I suspect you will be reluctant to accept the help of apostate, Solas did come to us freely. Witnesses saw him in a nearby village at the time of the blast, so he was likely not responsible for what happened at the conclave. However, he has described the effects of the breach in enough detail to convince me that he knows more about the Fade than anyone else present. Solas has requested permission to study the lone survivor and one of the smaller rifts in hopes of finding a way to seal the breach. He has correctly guessed that it's growing and believes it will destroy the entire world unless we find a way to stop it. Unless you object, I will allow him his studies and under proper observation, of course. Liliana. Varric Therius. There's power in stories. That's all history is. The best tales, the ones that last, might as well be mine. Varric Tethras, Varric Tethras, of the Dwarven Mercenaries Guild of Kirkwall is famous, or infamous, for two things: his books and his association with the champion of Kirkwall. I knew it, it's him. Okay. After the Templars and the Circles broke away from the Chantry, Divine Justina V sent her agents to Kirkwall. where the roots of the war began. In search of answers, the champion had long since disappeared, but Varric had written a book on his friend's involvement with the destruction of the Kirkwall Chantry, and the left and right hands of the divine located him with surprising ease. They captured and interrogated him, then brought him to the conclave to give his testimony to the divine in person, but fate decreed he would never meet her. Yeah, so he was the guy from Dragon Age 2. Thought so. So that's all for now. Brilliant.